Well, thank you for this opportunity to be here today. And I was thinking, what better way for us to get connected with each other than to start with a pop quiz, right? Who doesn't like those? So, by show of hands, how many of you are aging? Okay. Okay. I'm going to try to not be nervous about the fact some of you did not respond. But, that really kind of underscores the message that I have to share with you today. But for a little more context, let me introduce you to two people, Theodora and Ted. Theodora recently celebrated her birthday quietly from her home, a place in which she receives 24-hour care. Now, as a young girl, she loved fantasy and adventure, and that transitioned into this deep passion for travel. But due to some health limitations, she hasn't been able to leave her apartment in a number of years. So she marked this occasion by popping open her laptop, logging into a website, donning some goggles, and taking a virtual tour of Rome from her most comfortable chair. Ted's birthday was a little different. He woke up early, got into a car, went to a local airfield, and went tandem skydiving with his two grandsons. Now, just think about these two people in your minds for just a minute. Close your eyes if you have to. Got them? Okay. Would it surprise you to know that Theodora is only 68 years old? Or that Ted had just turned 103? What assumptions did you make about their ages? Or about their health? Or about what aging is supposed to look like? Or just what aging successfully looks like to you? See, if you were to talk to Ted and Theodora, they would tell you that they both consider themselves to be aging successfully because maybe, just maybe, it's not the number of candles on the cake that matters, but the meaning from the light that they cast. Now, I am with you here today as a self-described hopeful contrarian. What does that mean? It means I like to challenge the dominant narrative, not out of defiance, but because I have a deep belief in possibility. I believe we need to look at aging very differently. And if we accomplish nothing else, I hope that we can confront together this pervasive myth that aging is this slow, inevitable decline. I reject that. Aging isn't a retreat, it's a progression. It's not a journey marked only by loss, but by the accumulation of wisdom and perspective. So join me today in re-envisioning aging, not as something to fear, but as a new frontier to explore. Because when we do shift the narrative, we don't just change how we age, we change how we live. For over 30 years, I've just been so fortunate to serve and to lead in the social ministry of aging. And across that time, I've gleaned a number of different insights. And I'm going to share a few of those with you today. Now, I hope they're informative. But more importantly, I hope they help us assist us in moving our language and adapting our language and understanding of aging so that we can actively be a part of a cultural shift that leans towards more successful living. So that first insight is that aging is not a medical condition. Now, that may or may not seem obvious to you. Now, from my perspective, I think if aging were a disease, then aren't all birthdays just diagnoses? Mr. Lenhard, we have your lab results back. You're positive for birthday. It is likely to recur annually. And symptoms can include people spontaneously bursting into song or greater access to baked goods with frosting on them. Symptoms vary. But the World Health Organization tells us that aging is not a disease. It's a diverse biological process that physical and mental changes associated with aging vary widely and are only loosely associated with chronological age. Well, gosh, that means that aging isn't a predictable decline. It's really more of a dynamic evolution. But society's not telling us that, are they? No, the anti-aging industry not so subtly sells us something completely different. That's a $120 billion global market based in fear of wrinkles, of graying hair. So how do we confront that? How do we look at that as something that is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced? See, we're told that aging is about loss, but it's not about loss. It's about adaptation. Physical and cognitive impairments are real things, but we all know people that have integrated those things into who they are for successful living. Some of you might be able to relate to this. I had an encounter with an individual with Alzheimer's who, in the presence of some familiar music, just lit up and became really engaged. She was a former professional dancer, and through an innovative combination of aquatic and music therapy, she was able to dance again. Now, not on a stage like she had before, but she was able to recreate her art. She was able to re-identify and reconnect with that part of herself that had not disappeared. And it continued to give her purpose. Which leads me to my second insight, and that is purpose doesn't retire. Now, think again, somebody maybe who you know that has retired. Did they fade into the background? Or did they reinvent themselves? We equate purpose and far too often value with employment. But retirement from the workforce is not retirement from engagement. It's not a lessening of our curiosity. It isn't a diminishment even of our contributions. Actually, quite the contrary. Many people find purpose after they've left their career. They become mentors, they become volunteers, they become activists. They have the time and the freedom to pursue things that they've always wanted to do their whole lives. Maybe they've wanted to write a book or learn a language or inexplicably talk in front of a large group of people in a public forum. And real opportunities for purpose are coming to light. Here in South Jersey, United Methodist Communities, a faith-based nonprofit senior living provider, is collaborating with a local university and a hospital system and dozens of both health and non-health related businesses to bring together a new way of living, a wellness community where seniors can live steps from campus. They can audit classes. They can mentor students, and they can create life with people of a variety of ages and backgrounds. Imagine this for just a second. A 23-year-old in a classroom with a 72-year-old. One is learning for a degree, the other one is learning for legacy. That is intergenerational synergy. And those that are in a higher level of care, they're going to have access to innovative hospital practices and be an ecological environment for education, where new nurses and therapists and administrators and students from across many academic pursuits can learn together with each other and from each other. This concept of the university-based retirement community is spreading across our country with this intentional design towards lifelong engagement with the shared premise that purpose doesn't retire, continues to grow. We need some support in getting there, which leads me to my third insight. Longevity is a design challenge. Why? Well, in 2022, 58 million Americans were aged 65 years or older. That's projected to be nearly 85 million by 2050. Across that same time frame, with that same age group, their share of the population will increase from 17% to over 23%. By 2030, 5 years, 1 in 5 Americans are going to be aged 65 years or older. How is that not driving innovation across every industry sector? Aging isn't a barrier, it's a blueprint. It's a design brief for a cultural shift in successful living. Let's start with housing. Right now, older Americans face inaccessible layouts. Building where there's social isolation or a lack of accessibility to needed services. And that's why there's this demand for intergenerational living and age-friendly architecture. Zero-step entries, adjustable countertops, even building flexible living spaces that will change based on changing mobility needs. Now, also add technology. We already have an incredible technology for smart homes, and it's improving every single day so it can respond to voice commands, and it can detect falls. And it can just remind us to hydrate better. These aren't just modern conveniences, they're empowerment tools. And we need help getting there. We need cities to start looking at, and they are, including aging successfully in their infrastructure planning. They're looking at transportation and improving their accessibility. They're looking at parks with intergenerational use in mind, walking paths and shaded seating, and all age playgrounds. Who does not want to play at every single age? Age-friendly communities are integrating healthcare and civic participation and social inclusion in their planning. The AARP network of age-friendly communities, they span hundreds of cities, all with these focus on 8 domains of livability. We've talked about housing and transportation, but it's also social engagement and just respecting the aging process. Aging is not a crisis. It's a creative opportunity. And that opportunity leads us to more successful living. Now, I'm asked frequently, what is the definition of successful living? And the great answer is it depends. But I want to share with you the story of Eleanor, which I think will help frame that. Eleanor was 93 years old. She wasn't really known by her neighbors. Those that did see her in the hallways referred to her as the quiet one. She was a retired accountant, widowed, no children. She spent most of her time reading, doing a little bit of walking, and tending a very modest balcony garden. She wasn't waiting for anything. She was just spending her time. Until one afternoon, she was out on a walk and she wandered into a watercolor workshop. Now, she hadn't touched a brush since grade school, so her first strokes were just a little wobbly. She would tell you that her colors were a little bit of a hot mess. But something clicked. She started painting every single day. Abstract shapes, vivid palettes. And then she realized there was something inside her. There was this emotional connection that she had not noticed before. 6 months later, she'd filled dozens of canvases. A local gallery featured her art in a show entitled Late Bloom. By the age of 95, she was teaching the workshop. She was being interviewed by the art community. She was collaborating with young digital artists to bring her pieces to life through animation. And as you would expect, somebody asked the question, "Eleanor, why did you wait so late?" To which she responded this, "I didn't start late. I just lived long enough to find my voice." That's not defying aging. It's becoming through it. It's not reinventing yourself in spite of aging, it's reinventing yourself because of it. Aging gave her time and freedom and emotional depth. We are constantly being told that aging is the end of relevance when we need to see it as it truly is, the beginning of reinvention and the opportunity for the development of self. And in Eleanor's case, sometimes the rarest bloom just takes a little bit longer. In about 25 years, there will be nearly 85 million Americans aged 65 years or older. That's not just an important statistic. It is an urgent call to action. Each of us individually, we need to reshape our language. We need to get a better understanding of what aging is about, because the words that we use shape the realities we're going to be creating. You need to ask yourselves, what is successful aging to you? Not just surviving, but thriving. And we also have a job as an entire community. We bring incredible gifts to the table. You don't have to be a gerontologist or a public policy expert to have an impact, but you do have to be a part of the change. Go out. Find unlikely allies. Push the boundaries of what your communities need to do to encourage this lifelong, engaging, purpose-driven, successful aging. Because here's my last insight. We don't need to fear aging. We need to fear not living. And isn't that something that we as human beings, simply being human, can accomplish together? Thank you. And live abundantly.